Get that water out of the goddamn huddle. I tell you when you get a fucking water break.
Welcome to the Buccaneers Observer Podcast. This is Ralph Phillips.
I'm Molly Bay.
Today is November 6, 2019.
You've been slaving away on the coach's film, so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. First and foremost, though, fact checks, follow-ups. Follow-up. I was wrong about the Keystone Cops play against Tennessee. Yeah. I thought it was Jameis Winston's fault. Bruce Arians said in a press conference that it was a jet sweep. The ball was supposed to be snapped right before Perriman crossed, but Arians said that Perriman lined up about 5 yards out too wide. That's what caused him running into, was it Ronald Jones?
So it was a timing issue.
Yeah, he lined out too far and
wasn't where he was supposed to be when the ball was snapped.
Yeah, he should have been across the snap before, or right at the snap. He was supposed to be there, and then he would be out of the way when the ball was handed off.
It seems like that happens not frequently, more frequently than I would like, where some of the offensive players aren't where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. You know, like receivers running the wrong routes or not cutting when they're supposed to, and Jameis throws it there and it gets picked off. We've seen that a couple times.
Yeah, I think that happens quite a bit with NFL teams. You know, believe it or not, this stuff is quite complex. Don't know how often it happens. That's one of the things that's hard about watching the All-22 footage is you don't really know what everybody's responsibility is supposed to be.
Yeah, and you get those comments a lot on the videos, on the film review videos, where people say, oh, he wasn't doing this, he was supposed to do that. And anyone can look at the film and see something different. It's not always completely obvious.
It's one of the reasons why I do more Jimmys and Joes than I do X's and O's, because the X's and O part, a lot of times you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, it might look the perfect example is that play right there. It looked pretty obvious, but then when you find out that Perriman lined up 5 yards too wide, that changes everything. But you never would have known that watching the game film. So with the Jimmys and Joes, you can definitely tell when somebody gets beat, one-on-one. So that's why I like to focus on that.
You got any more fact checks or follow-ups?
Nope.
All right, so let's get to it.
Okay, Seattle game. What happened? Just a general summation. We were pretty much on point with what we thought watching the game. There were a few things, though, that stood out to me. One, the Seattle played a really good game. I mean, they didn't make a lot of mistakes.
That is a testament to consistency. They have had the same coach, same quarterback for how many years?
Yes, I do believe that's a huge factor. And their game was relatively simple. I mean, they ran play action bootlegs, I think 8 times I counted. That's a lot to basically run the same play. I mean, they did different variations of it, and then they would fake it a couple of times, but that seemed to be their staple play.
They must have noticed that we fall for it in years past.
Well, we rarely do fall for it.
Right.
And we didn't.
Well, now we don't.
Right, yes.
Last year, years before, it was every time we were falling for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Well, we didn't watch a whole lot of Seattle before the game, and I don't know if that's a play they run as often as they do, as often as they did against us. So I can't testify to that one way or another. But they're very good at it. And they're very good. Russell Wilson was very good about when he does the bootleg. I mean, we were very disciplined. We would be right there in his face, but then he would just drop it. You know, he would act like he was going to run. That would bring the linebacker up, and then he would just drop it over top the linebacker to, tight end or wide receiver running a crossing route or running across the middle. Very hard to defend with him. He didn't run a lot on us. We had Devin White was pretty much primarily spying on Russell Wilson. He had the one big run towards late in the game, but we kept him contained for the most part. The defensive line did a good job at that. They didn't leave a whole lot of gaps for him to run through. Except for that one play in, I think it was the fourth quarter, where he ended up scrambling for like 20 yards. Okay? And he saw it immediately. As soon as that space opened up between the left tackle and the right guard, or the left tackle and left guard, he just tucked the ball and ran. I mean, he went into his drop back and then immediately ran because he saw that big space. They did a lot of rub routes, pick plays, a lot of them. And Jamel Dean got rubbed off quite a bit. I said that during the video. I was like, yeah, they're rubbing our defenders off. I was like, oh my gosh. Yes.
If no one comments about that on the video, I'm going to be so disappointed. I will make a shadow account or a burner account and comment.
But they were very good with the way they did it. A lot of the pick plays, they'll actually bump into guys and all that, but they would just get in the way just enough to cause a little bit of separation. Jamel Dean had a horrible, horrible game.
Poor guy. They picked on him.
Yes, and I don't know. I really don't know if they specifically game planned to target him.
I don't think so, because Carlton Davis got hurt during warm-up, so they didn't even know that Jamel Dean was going to be in there.
You're right. But yeah, that's why I think they just... he didn't cover his receivers very well, and his guys were getting open. So
interesting. Okay.
And Russell Wilson was just throwing at the open receiver. And that's another thing. He didn't miss a single open receiver during this game. He's one of those quarterbacks. If you fall down, he's going to hit your guy. He's not a progressive read type quarterback. He might go through progressions, but if a third wide receiver is open, he's going to throw it to him immediately. So Jamel Dean did not handle traffic well. There was a couple plays where even our guys got in his way.
He got rubbed off by one of our guys?
Yeah. That's funny. He was thrown at 16 times.
Woo!
I know. I didn't chart how much anybody else got thrown at, but I'm pretty sure that was by far the most of all our defensive backs. He allowed 3 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion.
Ouch.
So that's 23 points.
That's an ugly.
Very, very ugly. Now, watching the game, I was impressed with Jamel Dean when I watched the broadcast when we were watching it live, because he really does have what Arian says. He's got length, and the guy's really long. He's really tall. He's got decent speed. And watching him, I was like, yeah, he had 5 pass defenses. That was more than anybody, the rest of the team combined. But, of course, then when you get thrown at 16 times, you should have. So, he did pretty decent when he was near the receiver, but so many times he would just be too far off the receiver. They would juke him out, or they would rub him off. And it got out of hand. It really did. But on the All-22, watching it, you can see real quick, and this is something I look for with guys. He does not like contact. This guy avoids contact.
Oh, God. Yeah. Just what we need, another Brent Grimes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's something he'll get into later. I mean, this was his first game.
Yeah, and he's young, moving from college to the NFL. It's a whole different beast.
And he wasn't expecting to play either. He had no preparation for this. It was you have an hour before the game to get ready to play the whole game. Now, that's intimidating.
It's like cramming for a test you didn't know you had. You
are so close from being in school. I'm like 30 years removed from school. I don't ever use school as an analogy for anything.
You probably wouldn't have when you were in school either.
That's true. So Jamel Dean was really our weak spot. That's obvious to anybody that watched the game. It really stood out on the game film, though. Winston played great. He played fantastic. I would almost say he played better than Russell Wilson. He had one scramble out of the side of the pocket when he didn't need to, but it worked out for him, and it wasn't a big deal. So, that one, I wouldn't even say it was a bad decision on his part. And he missed one open receiver. He didn't see him. But again, he threw to the receiver right in front of the guy. So it was really a difference of about 5 or 6 yards. So other than that, Jameis Winston played a great game. The fumble he had, I did this in the video, and he was blamed for it on the broadcast. And me and you were sitting there watching it, and they showed it in another way. And you could see that Donovan Smith hit his elbow. Well, not only that, Donovan Smith stepped on his foot.
Oh, no.
The reason why Donovan Smith hit his elbow and stepped on his foot is because Jameis Winston backed into him. I did not see that until I watched the All-22. You can see, and it was he only backed up like 2 feet.
You couldn't tell on the broadcast either because the broadcast was so panned in. It was like just from
they don't
his
show the
chest
feet
up, right? Like you can't see, and you could barely see Donovan.
Yeah, Jameis Winston started on the inside of the left hash mark, and he got hit by Donovan on the outside of the left hash mark. So it was about 2 feet. When he snapped the ball, he backed up right to about the middle of the hash mark, and then he shuffled his feet and backed up, and that's when he hit Donovan Smith.
Interesting.
So it really wasn't Donovan Smith's fault. I mean, you could blame both of them, but
yeah, just kind of one of those plays.
Yeah, it's just one of those plays, plays that seem to happen to the Bucs quite often. One thing that really stood out on the All-22, and this reminds me of the New Orleans Saints game, we played with low energy. I mean, we played these guys hard, and we had a shootout with them, took them into overtime, but they were much more physical than we were, and they had much more energy. We were tired. You could tell our guys are tired.
You think it was the jet lag, the travel, the time difference?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of excuses you could say for what it was, but yeah, I would say it's just all this traveling they've had to do. I mean, to be honest, they played great considering all the tens of thousands of miles they've traveled in the past few weeks.
It's just outrageous.
It is dumb. I mean, the NFL really, they should just give us a playoff spot just for screwing us over so bad.
Is that how it works?
It should work that way. I mean, it's just not. It's not fair. It's not parity. They talk about they want parity in the NFL. That's not parity.
Yeah, don't give us a bullshit schedule and then give a team like the Patriots the easiest schedule in the league.
That's crazy, ain't it? They come up against a hard team, the Ravens, and they got their butt stomped. But we played well, and we played hard, but not as hard as we normally do, and the energy just wasn't there. Whitehead is a perfect example. Well, I don't know if Whitehead has changed his style of play since he got hurt a couple weeks ago. You know, he got his head wrong, but he hasn't been quite as physical. And he didn't have the best game in this game. He actually gave up the game-winning touchdown. But he's not flying in and hitting guys like he was before he got hurt.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I haven't noticed him the past few games.
And
he hasn't stood out to me.
And he's one of the guys that when a good play is made on defense, I mean, he's up there jumping up and down and hooting and hollering and all that. None of that in this game. There was none on anybody. JPP did a little thing after he got his sack and all that, but they just looked tired. They looked like they didn't have the energy to do that stuff. And even, I talk about Vita Vea is always standing on the sideline watching the offense, and when anything happens, he goes over there doing his Incredible Hulk stance or his Vita Vea stance, where he's got his arms down, clenched. Ugh! None of that. I didn't even see him I did see him standing on the sideline once with Bo Allen, but they were kind of off about 5 yards back. Very unusual. I mean, Vita Vea is usually right there. These guys are tired, man. They need this game coming up where they can wake up Sunday morning in their own damn beds and drive to the game. They need it. Man, we are going to just destroy the Cardinals. But the O-line played great. I mean, they had a few slip-ups here and there, but you expect that even with the best O-lines. Jadeveon Clowney. Who? Jadeveon Clowney. Do you remember hearing his name?
No, I forgot he was on Seattle.
Yeah. DeMar Dotson, he went up against DeMar Dotson for the first part of the game, and then he went up a lot against Donovan Smith, the second part of the game. They kept switching him, left side and right side. He didn't do nothing. I mean, they were just manhandling him. The offensive line did great. The one sack that was given up, 54, who was that? Bobby Wagner, he comes shooting up through the middle untouched and got that sack on Jameis Winston. That was 27. Ronald Jones missed the block on the blitz. He actually didn't even see the guy coming. He was over there helping Donovan Smith with the guy. Donovan Smith didn't need no help. He just did not see that blitz coming. They gave up a few. Jameis Winston got hit as he was throwing a couple of times, getting pushed back. But, it was nothing. Definitely not bad. And that's one of the things, when we talk about the positives with this team, our offensive line is playing above average, if you ask me. I mean, they're not playing spectacular. They're not totally stuffing people and all that, but they're playing really well. And if we remember, go back and look, in the offseason, the preseason, everybody was worried about the offensive line. And, they're head and shoulders above where they were last year.
I would like to chart it out because the offensive line is still taking a lot of flack.
I know, it aggravates me.
I'd like to look through all the sacks and see and chart whose responsibility that was or whose fault that is. Just to see the numbers because we've said a majority of them are running backs in pass protection. Mm-hmm. I listened to Pewtercast today with Scott Reynolds. They had him on. And Scott Reynolds was saying with Rojo getting the start, he's really played spectacular this year. And he's good with running and pass protection. And I'm like, no. Are you watching the same? Yeah. So I would like to see the actual numbers, just go through all the sacks and look at.
Well, I'm going to put together a video showing all the missed pass protection by the running backs. And you'll see, the offensive line has given up, I think of all the sacks, they've maybe given up 30%, maybe 40, somewhere in that area, half, maybe at most half. But, Jameis Winston running into sacks and the running backs missing assignments. And tight ends, too.
But they're still on pace to give up a ridiculous amount of sacks this season. I forget what the number was.
Well, the hard part of our schedule is over. Now we're playing relatively easy games from here on out. I think we got Houston coming up. That might be a little difficult.
New Orleans, we play after the Cardinals. We'll play Atlanta twice.
Yeah. So the O-line played great. The defensive line, man, they just, like I said, they just did not. This was probably the worst showing of the defensive line yet. They had a pretty decent game, but still, he's not playing with the violence that he was last year. I got a couple of clips.
I think the losing is kind of demoralizing.
Could be.
And I'm sure that they're tired.
Yeah, I think they're just tired.
But we lost Carl Nassib and Anthony Nelson in that game, and there were only 4 outside linebackers active, so we lost 2 of them. And so JPP and Barrett play like the whole game.
Yeah. And Barrett made a few mistakes. This is the first time I've seen him make mistakes. He made a couple of them. Sue had his worst game yet, though. The offensive line of the Seattle Seahawks held almost every play. It wasn't real bad holding, but it was just enough to maneuver the defensive linemen and keep them from getting up. And it reminded me of the Washington Redskins game a couple years ago where I was just like, wow, these referees must be on the take because those Redskins linemen held our guys the whole game. And this was kind of this way. There was a lot of little holding, but these refs didn't call a lot of stuff. Like was James getting hit in the helmet? They didn't call it. There was pass interference. They didn't call it. There was holding. They didn't call it. So they were very lax. They let these guys play. And our offensive line, I think our defensive line came to our offensive line at halftime or something where they're about and said, hey, man, these guys are holding us all day long, so y'all need to start holding. And they did. So the last half of the game, it was just holding. Both sides were just going crazy with the hold. But it wasn't real bad holding. It was just holding enough just to slow them down. And then they let them go. But Sue and Vea both ended up on the ground more combined than they have all year. But Sue had a really bad game. He just did not look like he was playing well, like he was feeling good, something. He was tired. I don't know. But he didn't. He just wasn't the dominant guy he has been before. And honestly, I don't know if Seattle's offensive line is really good. And they did pretty good against our defensive line. We did not get the pressure I would have liked to have seen against Russell Wilson. But then again, we might have just been worried about keeping him in the pocket. And we did a really good job of that.
Also, their run game really took off. Do you think that was on the defensive line?
Yeah. Well, I point this out in the video, but it's, the Derrick Henry of Tennessee, when he had 3 runs against us. Now 3 of them were because of holding, mainly on Golston. On that play with Chris Carson, where he popped off that big 56-yarder, it was 100% our fault. There was a hole. Sue came from one side, Bo Allen came from another. They had him dead to rights. You see them both. They lock in on him. They target him. They got him. They hit him with great force, and unfortunately, they ended up hitting each other with great force. Knocked each other off the damn tackle, and then 3 other players mistackled after that. And then Devin White, of course, did his spectacular play. Well, he was fast.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of that. Less of him chasing someone 50 yards down the field,
right.
But
more of that speed.
I like the speed.
Knocking balls out.
Yeah.
Hitting guys. But yeah, we seemed a bit low energy. They were much more feisty than us. There was like a lot of pushing and shoving after the play. It was almost all them. And we wouldn't engage with them. We would just walk away, which is very, very strange for us. I mean, we're kind of a bully team, especially our defensive line. There wasn't a whole lot of that in there. They were coming in harder. They were tackling harder. They were more physical. I mean, not by leaps and bounds, but we just didn't seem to have the energy we have been lately. Like I said, it reminds me of the Saints game. And even Jordan Whitehead was subdued. I really do think that we're just tired. And especially it happened during overtime. I mean, our defense was out there at the end of the fourth quarter. The Seattle got the ball. There was like a minute left or so. They drove it down the field, attempted to kick the field goal with 3 seconds left. They missed it. Then we'll get in overtime. They got the ball right back. Our defense had to go right back out on the field. These guys were tired, man. I'm telling you. They were tired to start the game, and then by the end of it, they were tired. I mean, they weren't out there like, panting and bent over with their hands on their hips and stuff, but compared to how they normally play, you can just tell they were just a couple notches down on their energy level. In overtime, we blitzed a lot, which that's hard to do when you're tired, too. But we did a lot of blitzing. I want to say we blitzed every play. It wasn't a lot of plays, but in overtime we blitzed. And they weren't that effective either.
Yeah, they just drove down the field.
Yeah. And we played a very basic defense throughout the whole game. Not a lot of looks or deception. I think a lot of that had to do with Jamel Dean and some of the other rookies we had out there. We just did not want to have a complex defense, confuse them. We played man coverage almost exclusively. We did zone a few times, but it was a very, very simple defense. Not like we normally play. With Auclair out, looks like we're going to have Josh Wells in quite a bit for those jumbo packages. He was in for a few plays during the Seattle game.
I saw once he was in, and you were like, oh, is Dotson hurt? During the broadcast.
That's right.
So we saw him in there.
There was one play, I don't know how I forgot to put it on the All-22, the video, but I didn't. It was a really neat play by Winston. The ball was snapped, and it was low, down about around his knees and to the left. It wasn't at his body. It was about, I don't know, probably a foot away from his body to the left and down around his knees. And he was looking downfield when the ball was snapped, and he reached out with one hand and grabbed that ball when it was snapped beside him and picked it up. Yeah, he was in shotgun formation. It was pretty neat. I was like, that was pretty impressive. Normally, for the Buccaneers, that would have been a Keystone Cops play.
Yeah, no kidding.
We had a few things go our way this game, which kind of makes you go, damn, if we can have things go our way and still not win, maybe all these games where we bitch about not getting ref calls or, these silly plays or, ball bouncing their opponent's way. And we say, if that only would have did this and that. Well, we had those this game. The refs called fumbles that we recovered. That we had that play with Perriman when the ball bounced the right way. He got it, went in for a touchdown. We still lost. So, a loss is a loss. A win is a win. But still, it's not like we're out there getting our butts whooped. We're a good team.
It's just such a head scratcher. I listened to Petercast today, like I mentioned earlier, and everyone's kind of got their theory about what's wrong with the team. I can't figure it out. I just don't. They brought up what you just said with the unluckiness, that Jameis just seems to be one of those people where sometimes things go right. More often than not, they go wrong for him. He just kind of has that energy about him. Maybe. And then Scott Reynolds, which he wrote in his Fab Five, said that BA should be doing the play calling, not Byron Leftwich.
I don't see a problem. How can you? There's not a problem with the play calling.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing too. I don't understand what does he think is wrong with the play calling. If anyone thinks that there's something wrong with the play calling, please tweet at us and explain what about it you disagree with. I'm curious. Maybe I should read the Fab Five.
I'm sure there's stuff that you could say in hindsight could have been done better or whatever, but our offense moving down the field is really not that much of a problem. We're scoring. My
opinion is the inconsistency, and it isn't just Jameis Winston. It's across the board, across the team.
Yes, and the inconsistency wouldn't bother me so much if we had players and units that would step up to fill that gap of the inconsistency. Like if Jameis Winston's having a bad game, screw it. Defense, get the ball, get the turnovers, score touchdowns. Good teams do that. When the wide receivers are getting shut down or they're screwing up, then the running backs step up and, they go above and beyond. We just don't seem to have that. It's like when one unit or one person starts messing up, it just demoralizes the whole team. And they don't step up.
I don't think that they necessarily play worse when things are going wrong, but that they're not, like you said, elevating the rest of the team.
I think it's the mentality. The fan base has definitely got it. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We talk about this. We'll be watching the game and something will happen and we'll go, oh no, here we go again. This is Buccaneer football. And, they got to be thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
And so when you have that mentality, or, it's kind of like with the secondary. When the secondary starts screwing up, the defensive line is just like, crap. This mess again.
Or when Jameis throws an interception and the defense has to go back out there and they have ridiculous field position and they're going to give up a touchdown, that's got to piss you off too.
Yes. So they don't seem to have that mentality of, hey, when one person or one unit is doing badly or underperforming, that they need to step it up as a team to cover up those deficits. We just don't seem to have that mentality.
in the off season, we talked all the time about the culture change.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And BA hasn't quite cracked that nut yet. And I wonder if it's his philosophy.
I don't know if he has or he hasn't because, we've lost 4 in a row now. We're 2-6. And these guys are still playing. I mean, I don't see anybody out there loafing. I mean, like I said, they look tired, but, I don't see anybody quitting. But last year, you saw that quick. Guys just...
Yeah. What... You didn't let me finish talking.
That's not unusual.
Let me finish my thought, and maybe you'll agree with me then.
No! You can't remember your thought, can you?
I can't remember it.
You were saying that the
culture change.
Culture change.
So, BA's philosophy, and what he tells the guys, is that this is their team, and they'll go as far as the team can take them. The players can take it. Well, when you have a team that for years has been performing badly, even if the players want to win, again, they have that negative, those thoughts. Here we go again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so maybe the onus is on BA to change his tactic a little bit.
Could be. I hate that we're 2-6. I really do. But I really like this team. I'm really sad that if we don't make the playoffs, that we're not going to have this team next year. We're going to have a lot of guys back. We got a lot of young guys and everything, but there's a lot of players that aren't going to be here next year that I would like to see with us still.
That's every year.
Yeah, that's true. There was an article, I can't remember where I read it, and I've been hearing this quite a bit throughout the media and the fandom, about jettisoning all these players so that we can get draft picks for next year. Like they want to get rid of Barrett, get him, trade him, Sue, trade him. But people even talk about getting rid of Mike Evans so we can stock up. I'm like, what? One, I don't like the whole let's quit mentality. And this was happening 2 weeks ago. They started this mess. But why in the world would you quit now? And plus, what makes you think that getting a bunch of new players next year is going to make anything? I mean, new players have to develop. And one of the reasons why we're having a hard time, especially in our secondary, because we've got so many new players. So what do you think is going to happen next year when you get a bunch of new players in, you've gotten rid of all your good vets? It's going to take years for this team to get to any point. And so these same people are going to be complaining next year, 8 games into the season, about, we need to get a bunch of free agents and get rid of all these crappy rookies we got. Whatever. I don't know. It's a weird thing. That's something that I think fantasy football has instilled in NFL fans, is they think that, if you've got an issue or a deficiency on any part of your team, then just go out and get a guy that's got better numbers and plug him in that spot. And that's going to fix everything. It's like, this is not how it works. There's a lot more that goes on here than stats.
I really am a firm believer in consistency.
Me too.
And the Bucs have completely lacked that since I've been a fan.
Oh, yeah.
And good teams don't have that problem, which is why they're good teams. It's like the Saints. They've been building what they have for years. New England. Mm-hmm. Well, they're kind of an exception because they get rid of
yeah, they're always an exception. The Ravens.
I mean, you do have to, like you said, develop players, but then you have to let those players get acclimated in that system to each other. And it's much easier to add or upgrade pieces than it is to completely rebuild. And all we've been doing for the past 11 years is the rebuild.
But it's hardly ever billed as a rebuild. It's always,
Right. Well, this year is no exception.
Yeah, right. This year it was the reload. Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. I mean, the good teams don't just pop up out of nowhere because they got a bunch of good draft picks. It's usually, coaches that have been there for a while have brought their guys in, worked the system. And that's one thing, like with BA, I mean, he's come in and the offense hasn't changed hardly at all.
The receiving core.
The receiving core's changed a little bit from the third stringer down.
Yeah.
BA is still trying to figure out with these guys who's going to work and who's not going to work. And so next year, if he's still here,
I think he will be. No one's really turned against him yet.
The media did there for a couple weeks, past couple weeks. But after this week, it's been very strange. After that Seattle game, man, everybody's like talking good about the team. Very strange.
Yeah, it's weird because I had stopped listening to any Bucs coverage, and then I happened to listen to that podcast today, and I was really surprised about how positive it was. And prior to that, I had been really despondent about the state of the team and the state of the fan base and what's going to happen, and is this year over?
Yeah, Molly has a hard time listening to a bunch of negative stuff.
I do.
When everybody starts being negative, she just stops
I shut it down, yeah. So I just assume that everyone was very negative, and based on Twitter also.
Well, they were after that Tennessee game. Now, I tell you what, they wanted to just blow this whole team up.
That one was frustrating, and I can see their point. Or that reaction. I can understand the reaction. I think it's an overreaction, but that one was one of those. Kind of like the Giants game where you're like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yes. Right, that's the thing about this year is, we've got 3 games that I can think of right off my head that we really should have won. And, all the other games, we were right in them to the last second.
They're more disappointing to me this season because it's stuff we're doing to ourselves.
Right. Well, yeah, we're beating ourselves. Well, you could say with the Saints game and the Seattle game, we went up against good teams. We slugged it out with them, and they were the better team. We got beat. All the rest of the losses we've had, we beat ourselves. I feel like the fan base, we have short memories. It's hard to remember games from week to week. It's definitely hard to remember seasons from season to season. But they seem to forget the Lovie Smith era where we were getting trounced by teams. I mean, Baltimore came in, scored 5 touchdowns on us in the first half. Chicago just rolled over top of it. I think they scored like 50 points. Atlanta just beat. It was bad stuff. This team isn't like that, I mean, this team, we are going toe-to-toe with good teams with a chance to beat them. And we're just beating ourselves every now and then on games that we should win. So I like this team. I like it. They're almost every team, we don't call for people to be cut and all that good stuff. But almost every team throughout the years, there's always a few players where I just roll my eyes about. I'm just like, oh, gosh, this guy, Donovan Smith was one. He just frustrated the hell out of me. And now that's why I'm just so thrilled to watch him now. He's playing so much better. Weird. Give guy a bunch of millions of dollars and they play well sometimes.
Maybe we should pay Jameis.
Maybe. Isn't he getting good money this year?
Yeah, but this is last year of his contract.
I don't know. But there's really nobody on this team that I feel that way about. The closest I would come to would be Vernon Hargreaves. And
Perriman.
Yeah. But I don't get, it's like with Perriman, I'm not like, what are you doing? It just seems like he's just not.
The effort isn't there. To me, he's Deshaun Jackson light because there's not as much lack of effort as there was with Deshaun Jackson, although it is infuriating. But there's also not the talent level as Deshaun Jackson.
And he's not getting the targets that Deshaun Jackson got either. Yeah. But yeah, it's just this team. I just like the whole team. I like the coaching staff. I like the team. So I get, when I hear people talk bad about it, especially when they bring up like the offensive line. Well, if we only had a good offensive line, and I'm just like, stop. Our offensive line is good. It's not great. I mean, it's not, top 10, but it's close.
We've seen what happens when you blow up an offensive line.
Right, yes.
So even if you feel like this offensive line, not great, I would say they're slightly above average.
Mm-hmm.
But you blow that up, and then what do you get? You got to rebuild your offensive line. And ask Lovie Smith how that works.
Right.
Out.
We are still dealing with. This is the first year since Lovie Smith was hired and blew up our offensive line, which is so weird. I've never seen that happen, and it was just weird how the media just kind of ignored it. And who does that? But anyhow, we haven't had a good offensive line since then, and that was what, 2014? Yeah, 2014. We've been dealing with that issue until this year. This is the first year I can go, okay, we can settle down. We've got a decent offensive line.
And how much of it was coaching, too? Because Dirk Cutter is a constant there as well.
True.
I don't know, but it's just a dumb decision to jettison your whole offensive line.
I know.
It's a terrible decision.
I swear to God, I think Lovie Smith coached this team out of spite. He wanted to give revenge for the Buccaneers firing him back when he was with Dungy. Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. That's the summation of the Seahawks game. If you want to check out the video I made, the things I found interesting, it's on YouTube. Just go search for Buccaneers Observer. It should pop up. It's a shorter one this time. I think it was like 15 minutes.
Wow.
Really wasn't a whole lot.
See what happens when we play relatively decent? There's nothing to talk about.
Well, a lot of the stuff I point out, is the Dimmies and Joes, especially the trenches, the offensive linemen throwing guys, the defensive linemen throwing guys, or the offensive linemen getting beat and getting thrown, stuff like that. Just wasn't a lot of that in this game. By about the third quarter, I was really frustrated because of all the holding. And I was like, I'm going to start, I'm going to start putting the holdings in. But then I realized it was almost every play. So I was like, there's no way I could, this video would be so long if I did that.
Would you rather they call the hold every play or that they just let them keep playing?
No, I would let them keep playing. I think holding is one of those penalties where I'm like, why? Why do we even have that as a penalty? It's one of those things I don't understand. And
you could really call it on every play.
You really could. But with the Seattle's offensive line, it was quite prevalent.
Cheating bitches.
They did a good job with our defensive line. But I don't know. I hate it. We go back to this, in engineering, they say that the more complex something is, the more likely it is to break. That's how I feel about the NFL and their rules. If you look at the rule book now and look at it just 10 years ago, it's probably double the size. They just added all this stuff in, and there's so much you could do to reduce that. I think that, reducing the actual rules themselves would help the game immensely and get rid of all the subjective crap. Don't have these refs decide whether it was an intentional hit or, if it was intentional grounding or whatever. Make the rules this, that, this, and that. If he steps over here, then it's this. If he doesn't step over there, then it's not that. Real simple. But holding is one I've never understood why they even have that as a rule. Because it's like, if linemen were allowed to be held, it would make it more difficult for the defensive linemen. That's for dang sure. But they would evolve. Those guys would learn how to get out of those holds. Right now, they don't know how to do it because they're not used to it. But that's how things happen. You see it in the NFL all the time. They do one rule change for the offense. The defense eventually evolves after a couple of years, and they learn how to beat that. We were talking the other day about face mask penalty. I hate the face mask penalty. I think it's the dumbest penalty on the planet. Not that the intention of the penalty is good. We don't want people grabbing people by the face mask and ripping their damn heads off, breaking their necks. But why are we depending on the players to not break somebody's neck? That's what we have equipment for. With the face mask, it's guys reach in and they grab hold of the metal grill. They wrap their fingers around the grill and they pull on it. It would be so damn easy to stop that by just putting a plastic shield on the inside of the face mask or the outside of the face mask so they can't stick their damn fingers in there. And if you don't like it fogging up or getting dirty or whatever, get one with slits or holes or whatever. Just get rid of that rule and make the equipment work for you. That's how you're supposed to do. I mean, that's like cars. Cars are so safe nowadays. Back in the 60s and 70s, these things were made out of steel. Now they're plastic and fabricated thin metal and aluminum. When they hit something, it's the car crumbles itself, and the frame of the car is what protects you. And you've got so much. You got airbags on the driver's side, the passenger side, the doors, and all that good stuff. That's what saves lives, not the speed limit. Not police officers sitting out there arresting people for not wearing seatbelts. That's not what saves lives. What saves lives is damn cars are built more safely. Used to, if you drove, go drive like a 1970 Trans Am. If you even bump something, if you were to bump a mailbox, it's just going to blow it up. I mean, just because it's like 3 tons of solid steel. It could be going 10 miles an hour and hit you, and it's going to break your neck. You get hit by a damn Corvette now, and it'd probably just bump you into the next lane or something. It's just everything's designed better, and that's what we need to do with the football. Just go through the rule books, get rid of all the subjective crap, and get rid of stuff that we can have equipment take the place of. The less rules, the better. Anyhow, that's my rant. Let me get off this soapbox. Got a few things in the news. Kellen Winslow has accepted a plea agreement. If you're not familiar, Kellen Winslow Jr. was arrested for attempted rape and all kinds of crazy stuff. He has accepted a plea deal to serve 12 to 18 years in prison.
Wow.
Yep.
That was the plea deal. Like, that was best case scenario.
Oh, he was going to get life. He was going to get life.
Good Lord.
Yeah. He had previously been convicted of 3 counts and acquitted on 1. They were all, there was 8 remaining rape and sexual assault charges. He had already been convicted on 3 of them, 3 separate ones, and 1 was acquitted. The jury couldn't reach a verdict on the remaining 8 charges, and the retrial began November 4th. And during recess and before opening statements were due to commence, Winslow's father, Hall of Fame tight end Kellen Winslow Jr., said loudly to one of the prosecutors, "Do not look over here." And then Winslow decided to accept a plea agreement for 12 to 18 years. So he's going to be in prison for, let's see, where's that at? Is that Florida? I can't remember. He's going to spend quite a few years in prison. So there we go. Ex-Buccaneer. That guy was crazy. All the stuff that came out. That is nuts how you find out all this stuff years and years after guys leave teams. And you go, how do we not know that? We've got, how many reporters do we have? Just beat reporters for the Buccaneers. We've got Rick Stroud, Greg Allman, Scott Reynolds, both Bucs, both Joe Bucs.
Mark Cook, Roy Cummings.
All right.
T-Bass.
Yeah, so that's 8 right there. And we're not naming Jenna Lane. That's not.
That one.
So we've got at least a dozen people whose job it is, their whole job, this is what they do for a living, is to report on this team. How they don't find out stuff like this I'm like, whoa, how does that happen? How does that happen? But it happens all the time. All these guys, there's all kinds of stuff that goes on with these teams that we don't find out until somebody writes a book or until something like this happens. This is the same guy who we found out was carrying blow-up dolls on the airplane. He obviously had a real...
Yeah, and then he was jerking off on the airplane.
Yeah.
He would carry the torso with holes that he would,
Yeah,
in his suitcase traveling to games.
With the
How
Buccaneers.
he got through security or TSA... That's got to be some weird shit. Being a TSA agent, you got to search some luggage and you open it.
And how would that not get out? I mean, how would it not get out?
Yeah, how does that not leak?
It's crazy to me.
He made that entire team uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that not one person leaked? I don't know.
Right.
It's crazy.
But it's not just the Buccaneers. He went to the Jets. Was it the Jets, I think?
Yeah.
He went to the Jets and did the same thing, and that didn't leak out there. It didn't leak out until after he got arrested. Nuts. I don't know, man. Telling you. Craziness. Buccaneers have signed rookie linebacker Quentin Bell to the practice squad. We put, who do we say, Auclair on injured reserve?
Yeah, for a toe injury he sustained during the game. I remember him going out. Must have been pretty bad if they put him on IR immediately.
That guy's tired of blocking.
He wasn't particularly good at it to begin with. So we put Anthony Auclair on IR, signed Quentin Bell to the practice squad. We had some other moves too. Cousin Daniels, remember him from preseason?
Yeah, he's the one that can't hear in the left ear?
No, he's blind.
Oh, he's blind. That's right.
He was moved to the active roster from the practice squad. We also signed outside linebacker Sam Acho. I don't know anything about him.
Why are we signing all these, or bringing up all these linebackers?
Maybe because Nassib's injury, he didn't practice today, and neither did Anthony Nelson. So we need some depth.
It's probably Anthony Nelson. Aaron's had said Anthony Nelson will probably miss Sunday's game with injury, according to Greg Allman. But he says that Carl Nassib might be able to play.
Gotcha.
So, so they're just shoring up because of those injuries.
Yeah. And then we waived wide receiver Amara Darbo.
You know you're not saying that name right.
Whatever. I didn't even know we signed him. Oh, we signed him October 17th and waived him today. So, yeah, we're making some moves. No trades.
Yeah, we were talking about the strength of schedule and all that, how we're coming up on the relatively easy part of our schedule now. First part was kind of rough. We had the hardest schedule in the league. Us and the Browns. The combined record of our opponents has been 43 wins, 23 losses. The Browns, their opponents have been 42 wins, 25 losses.
How does that happen with two teams that had similar records last year, losing records last year? How do you give them the hardest schedule? And how can you expect them to ever get out of the bottom of the league?
Well, this isn't planned by the NFL as far as, giving us the hardest schedule. These schedules are in advance for years. I mean, we know who we're going to play next year.
Right. The divisions.
Right, because of the divisions. The only thing we don't know are the two or three
It's the
NFC teams that are at the same level we are at the end of the season.
Right.
But the Cowboys, their combined opponents are been 26 and 42, and the Patriots combined are 24 wins and 49 losses.
Wow.
It's like, I don't know, man. Parity is hard to do. It's hard to force. So we're coming up on the easier part of our schedule. We're going to be at home for 2 weeks, and then we got another away game in Atlanta. But we got Arizona we're playing. That's going to be a pretty easy game. I guarantee you that. Again, put money on it. Just like you did Tennessee Titans on my
Somebody was giving you a hard time about it.
I know. They basically told me to shut up.
Yeah. Right.
And then we got New Orleans coming to our house. So
I would love to go to that game.
Yeah, you never know. We might. Who knows?
All right, let's look at our opponents coming up.
Okay.
Just a refresher, because we haven't talked about the schedule. We got the Cardinals week 10, New Orleans week 11.
Both of those are at Raymond James Stadium.
Then we go to the Falcons.
Week 12.
Week 12. Week 13, we're at Jacksonville. Week 14, the Colts come to Tampa. Then 15, we go to Detroit, which they're playing pretty well.
They're slinging the rock.
Slinging it. Week 16, we got the Texans at home. And then week 17, we got the Falcons at home.
Yeah, so, it's relatively easy. I mean, we got the Colts, Houston, New Orleans, rest of them. We should be able to win.
You still sticking to your...
I'm sticking 10-6, man. We're winning out. This is... the Panthers did it last year.
No,
except the opposite.
The opposite. You know? I think that's easier to do than it is to win out. I think losing out is more difficult.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. You got anything else?
I do. I just wanted to mention that Cam Newton is on injured reserve.
His season is over. Most likely his tenure at the Carolina Panthers is over.
Oh, Ronald Jones was named the starter.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, did you want to go back to Cam?
Yeah, it's great news, I think. We broke Cam Newton. We might have ended his career. So, even if we don't win another game for the rest of the season, we've got that. Yeah, so Ronald Jones is going to be the starter coming up against the Cardinals. They've got David Johnson back. He's coming back.
I'll have that in the preview tomorrow.
That's right. Gosh, is that tomorrow? Yeah. Well, Friday.
Yes. The Atlanta Falcons are doing some restructuring in their coaching staff. This is so weird.
Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't know that Raheem Morris was the wide receiver coach.
I know. Why?
How in the world does that happen?
Now he's not. Now he's the new secondary coach. The running backs coach, Dave Brock, is moving to Raheem's old job. And then offensive assistant Bernie Parmalee will be the new running backs coach.
So it
sounds like Raheem was not working out as the wide receivers coach, and so they're shuffling everybody around.
Man, I don't know. That's just a
weird experiment.
That is a mess over there. So they just moved everybody around. They didn't get rid of anybody or add anybody.
Right. They just shifted them. Hey, that's the BA's philosophy. He doesn't fire assistants. He just moves them.
Yeah.
Ryan Jensen is the Buccaneers nominee for the USAA Salute to Service Award.
I saw that. Good job, Ron.
I know. Oh, this is an interesting stat by Greg Allman, of course. Jameis Winston is second among NFL quarterbacks in passing yards per game. I wonder if that includes the ones he throws to the other team. Only the Lions' Matthew Stafford is higher. And Jameis is still tied with Baker Mayfield for a league-high 12 interceptions.
He played well against Seattle, though.
Yes, and I don't mind, I can accept Jameis for who he is and what kind of player he is, as long as we don't get as many frequent games.
We've had too many this year. I could even handle, a 3-touchdown game and 2 interceptions. If he's coming out positive, touchdowns, interceptions, I'm good, with the caveat that the interceptions don't lose us the game. Yeah, to me, that's really, I don't care how bad he plays as long as we win.
Yeah, right.
And to me, that goes back to what I was saying. It's our defense isn't stepping up when he's playing bad.
Yes.
All righty, well, that's going to wrap it up for us. I think I said that earlier.
For real this time.
For reals this time. Molly's going to have the game preview for the Arizona Cardinals coming up. We're going to have that podcast out Friday. We were a little late with this podcast today because of me taking forever to go over the game film. We put the press conference from Bruce Arians at the end of the last podcast, and it's something I've thought about doing, whether I'd like to put his latest press conference at the end of our podcast so you can listen to it if you want to. But then again, I don't know if that's something that would be, if people would like. So just let us know, send us a message or tweet us or whatever. Let us know if you think that would be a good idea or if you liked the last podcast where we did that. I probably still might do it anyhow. I don't know, but I don't want to go through the effort if nobody's going to be interested in it.
Or if they hate it.
Right. Or
I don't want to listen to the school.
Well, Bruce Arians, I love his press conferences. He talks football. He doesn't do any BS. He's not out there giving coach speak. He just talks good football. And if you listen closely, you learn something. So I thought it'd be a good idea to put his press conferences in. And we always talk a lot about his press conferences too. So I thought if we put it at the end of the podcast, people could listen to it and make up their own minds about what we said. So anyhow, again, for the third time, that's going to wrap it up for us. Till the next time.
Go Bucs.
All right, not practicing Carl Nassib and Anthony Nelson. We basically just had a walkthrough as if it was a Thursday game. The travel, the extra plays in the ball game, all those things, we're a little bit tired, so we made sure that this was more of a mental practice and preparation.
What will tomorrow be like then?
It'll be a full speed, regular practice.
Bruce, with the injuries you guys added to outside linebackers, Sam's been out of the league for a bit, but just want to see what he brings and what you remember from your...
Sam's one of those real high-energy, very, very bright guys, so he'll pick it up real quick. He can help us on special teams where we're missing not just 2 outside linebackers, but 2 starters on special teams. And Kaz has been here going full speed and really improving, so he'll help us a bunch also.
What have you seen from him since he's been here? Obviously a guy who comes from a Division II.
Yeah, he had a great camp, then he got hurt, and we were really happy waiting to get him back. And he's very explosive. He's a really good pass rusher. He's got speed to play on teams. So, yeah, he's got a good future.
His vision has not been a factor?
Not at all.
Do you have any sense in terms of whether Nassib or Nelson might be out already this week?
Nelson probably. Nassib has a chance.
Thoughts going against your old team this week?
There's only about 8 or 9 guys left on that team that, from when I had them 2 years ago, pretty good overhaul. Those guys, it's always difficult. I don't like going against friends, but we're not friends when it's kicked off. So,
Coach, what are your impressions of Kyler Murray and how he's developed during his rookie season?
Yeah, very, very impressed. He's a real fast Russell Wilson. Extremely dangerous when he breaks out of there and gets the ball out of his hand real quick, very accurate, and they're doing some really, really good things with him.
In Seattle, Devin White said that he assembled a group of the rookies prior to the game once they learned that Carlton Davis was going to be out, and he basically said this is what they brought us in here to do. Mm-hmm. What does that say about him, that a young guy, a rookie, would assume kind of that leadership role in a situation?
Well, that's exactly what we drafted him for and expect out of him. We had a long talk last week. When he was out, Levante kind of took over. JPP coming back. That hey, you're still a vocal part of this. I want your leadership, especially with that young group. So I was really happy he did it.
When you look at the splash plays he was able to make, not just the 12 tackles, but the 2 forced fumbles, the half a sack. What does it say about his development?
Yeah, he's healthy. He's healthy again. He's turning the corner. He's caught back up. When a young guy comes out of there and misses 2 or 3 weeks, it's hard to catch back up. And just the speed of the game itself, wearing a brace for the first time in your life, all those little things.
Bruce, you guys are 4th in the league in scoring points, but when it comes to giving up points, 31st in the league. Has there been a common denominator there that's causing this team to struggle?
Yeah, it's basically on the back end, where we thought we'd be very strong. We made errors mentally in technique and judgment and everything else, so very disappointing in that way. To have a lead, I'm not used to giving up leads in the 4th quarter, and we've done it a few times now.
I know during the summer you had said that you felt like the secondary could be fixed.
Oh, totally, because of talent. But that talent isn't showing up playing that way.
Have you kind of gone back and said, all right, maybe what did I miss in that situation? Or is it really just about going out there and just being able to...
It's playing on Sunday, not in shorts in spring. You get fooled sometimes in shorts in spring because that's the guys that are out there playing. The big guys, you never know until you put pads on. Some of those guys, when the noise level goes up, it all changes too.
Do you think the coaching in the secondary has been fine, Coach? Is it just...
No, I think it's outstanding.
You blitz Russell Wilson quite a bit. And of course, made you pay a few times. But is there any way you can help that back end by not putting...
Yeah, getting home on those blitzes. We got tentative when he broke out of there. We're sending you, but we're not sending you to just contain him, especially when we send everybody. We sent everybody twice and we didn't get home, and that ain't the back end's fault. That's the guys blitzing.
Bruce, how extensively did you use Patrick Peterson to shadow the other team's best wide out, and do you think they'll do that with Evans on Sunday?
Yeah, I would think so. We always did it. It was just what we did, But yeah, I would until he's been doing a little bit of it in the 2 games he's played with Thomas and Golden Tate. So
when you come into a new organization, and this will be your second time doing that as a head coach, how long does it take to be able to get on the same page with your coaching staff and the front office, where you guys are, kind of seeing the same things in terms of the players you want to go after and even the players on your current roster?
That was like one day, because I'd already worked with Jason and the staff's all been together, so that was the first day coming in.
Bruce, we know the famous quote about you are what your record says you are. Is it that simple for you, or do you feel like this team is not reflected in the win column as much as what they're capable of?
No, you are what you are. I mean, it's disappointing to be where we're at because we've had leads. We've come from behind. We've missed a kick. We don't get a call. That's all very disappointing because we should be in the hunt. And there's a lot of football left to get into the hunt. You got to win one to get a string of one of them going, and we need to win one.
The first time you were coaching JPP, obviously you knew what his talent is, but is there something that he's shown you that you didn't know about him?
No, I knew about the leadership and the positive energy all the time, and it's fun to be around.
You've lost a couple games, here where you scored 30-plus points, right? I mean, is it too simplistic to say that your defense just wasn't grown up enough or good enough right now, and that's what's held you back? I
think the front seven's playing outstanding. It's the back end where when Vernon's your oldest guy, you're young, and the simplest thing is play dude coverage. You got that dude. You ain't got to think. They beat Seattle, had a really good plan of picking us and doing some things to get guys loose. But in our zone matchups and stuff, that's been disappointing. When we played the Giants, for instance, we give up a first play missed tackle. Jumping over route, give up that's just dumb, and inexperienced.
And because of that, does that kind of make you play more, dude or cat coverage? Because you do that, at least that way, guys know who they're supposed to cover.
That makes it the simplest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They can just react. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, Jameis has been sacked more than any quarterback in the league this year. He's been sacked 30 times. He's been hit 27. How much of that is just on him, on the scheme that you're going to get guys out and he's going to? Yeah, I mean it's a lot on him. To get the ball out. We've missed some guys. Obviously, the big game in London you're missing. Yeah, that was huge. That had a big part of it. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the young secondary, a guy like Jamel Dean in that situation, not necessarily knowing how much he was playing the defense until just before the game. He's obviously disappointed overall with his performance. He also broke up a lot of passes and had, some flashes. So how much can a guy like that build on the positive aspects of a performance like that?
For a young guy, that's what you have to take. And as a coach, that's what you have to take. You have to take what he did really well and build on it, because he's going to be a heck of a player. He's a big, long, physical guy. And, he had Metcalf. That wasn't an easy matchup, but he handled it pretty well. I mean, that long one at the end, we had zero coverage. Somebody's got to get home and hit the quarterback. That ain't his fault.
In hindsight, I mean, if you could go back, would you have considered maybe bringing in a veteran guy? I mean, they had Brent Grimes before, but bringing in a veteran guy to kind of help these young guys out a little more?
Well, yeah, we brought in Darian Stewart, and there's only so many guys available.
Bruce, at the trade deadline, to your knowledge, was the team in any serious discussions about maybe bringing in a veteran starter? Or were you content to sink or swim with what you had?
Well, there really wasn't one available. Who was it? I mean, there's nobody out there that can still play fast enough to play.
You look back on some of the passing combinations you've had over the last couple of years, Carson Palmer to Fitz and now Winston to Mike. Do you adjust to these particular sets of quarterbacks and receivers, or do you take a look at the personnel that you have and just go with a particular game plan? Do you evolve with different sets of quarterbacks and receivers?
You do what they do best. You don't say, here's the system, learn it. You, as a coach, you figure, what can my guys do best to win this game? And you put them in those situations.
Bruce, I'm playing on a man you're talking about. Are you finding teams are running a lot of crossing routes, and is there a balance to try to stop one versus the other?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to. If you're going to play zone, you're going to get the same thing. You're just going to sit down in zones. I mean, it's just playing smarter. It's all it is. It's playing smarter.
Coach, 8 games in, and injuries certainly have had effect on this, but how would you assess how the tight ends have played so far on your offense?
Offensively?
Yes, sir.
We're scoring enough points to win games.
Your tight ends, sir.
My tight ends? Yeah, it's a shame about Anthony because he was playing really, really well. And, we lose him for the season. But we'll get O.J. back. Cam's been struggling with the ribs, but they're playing sound. We'll use the tackle some. We'll do whatever we have to take.
We talked about those 5 rookies that played in the last game, and that's who you are right now, right? But
yeah.
The worst thing about a rookie is you can't give him the experience. He
right.
has to play.
And I think the other guys are second-year players. So.
Yeah. So, yeah. Right. But as you look at it, that core, these starting with your middle linebacker, I mean, this could be your core for a while, right? I mean,
and I like
there is an upside to the fact that they're out there competing now, and even they're going.
They're learning valuable lessons for the future. But let's win.
Right.
Let's do it and win. Yeah.
Bruce, you're not exactly used to being 2-6 at the midpoint of a football season.
No.
How's that sitting with you? Are you stunned at this point?
No, I'm just pissed because we had games to win and we didn't win them. And as a coach, it's like you just keep flipping it. Why? What can we do better? How can we finish the last 5 minutes of games? Because the last 5 minutes of games tells the whole season.
Bruce, for them to have a rookie quarterback in Arizona, they have 4 turnovers in 9 games. How do they do that?
It's a very simple system, and he's a very bright kid. And they're not fumbling the ball. So,
Bruce, in that secondary, is there anyone that's really stood up or is showing a lot of progress in your eyes at all?
In ours?
Yes.
Oh, Sean Murphy-Bunning's playing really, really well. Really well.
Especially, I guess, considering, it was the first preseason game. I think you had made a comment publicly saying that he, wasn't kind of where he needed to be, or he wasn't going in the games.
He kind of dipped. He's way back up.
I mean, what's been the difference, you think, for him? Is it just a little bit of time and just understanding how to do it?
Yeah, just learning where he was, learning his role, especially young players when they learn their role. And he's a starting corner now. He can play nickel, so his role is really expanded.